Hey everybody, Zach again at newtutorial.com, coming in making a video for you today. And I'm out here and I decided to make a video today. After Sukkot, was really busy with a lot of things, and so been catching up on doing some videos for you guys. And after Sukkot, there was a big hubbub of these guys out there, pushing this, anti-missionary view that just caught a lot of people off guard after the feast was over. And there was a guy who put out some videos listing his talking points on why, the New Testament can be disregarded. Yeshua is not the Messiah. There is no Messiah named Yeshua. And a lot of people were confused by these videos, and it just seems like, some of these talking points have really clung on to a lot of people, and I find them absolutely ridiculous. Their talking points are just regurgitated one from another, and I find it very frustrating because people will come to me and say, Zach, I found this evidence, and I believe in, I can't believe in Yeshua anymore in the New Testament based on these, reasons, bang, 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 and they're just regurgitated talking points from people like Tovia Singer or this guy, Scott Shube or whatever, and they didn't discover these on their own. They just got them from someone else. It's not like they're reading the Bible one day and all of a sudden, Yeshua's not the Messiah. It's regurgitated talking points. That's how I know they're fake. Especially when someone comes to me and says, look what I've discovered. I've done videos on this in the past. I'll continue to do videos on this. In fact, I have an entire playlist on my New Tutorial YouTube channel called Defending Yeshua. And I go through some of these arguments, and I have been going through some of these arguments, and I'm going to continue to go through some of these arguments. In fact, I'm going through some of these point by point to refute these claims and just show you how ridiculous they are and how ill-researched they are. Sometimes just ridiculously so. Anyway, I'm doing this, and I've been talking to some people online, especially on Facebook here and there, and social media, and responding through emails. And like one of these, there was a woman who was struggling with this, and she was giving her reasons, some of these questions that, one of these guys has been asking. And I said, listen, the reason you're struggling with this is because you're ungrounded. You're poorly grounded in the Word. And someone came out and attacked me for that comment, saying, how dare I call this woman ungrounded? And the woman came back and said, yes, I am ungrounded. I totally admit it. I'm new to all this, and I'm on unstable ground. Totally admitted, what I had claimed about her. And it's, if your faith is not founded on the rock, and the rock is Torah, you will easily recognize the Torah made flesh if you're grounded on that rock, if you've built your foundation upon the rock. And some of these people have not done that. And so it's a controversy going around the movement right now and amongst circles. And it's really, I find it interesting because what is the patience of the saints? The patience of the saints is those who hold to the testimony of Yeshua and who keep the commandments of God. And right now, today, we have a society that is telling you that the commandments don't matter, and you have people on the other side who's saying there's no Yeshua. It's an attack from both sides. And so when I read that, the patience of the saints are those who endure and at the end still have the testimony of Yeshua and who have the commandments of the Most High God. We're being attacked from both ends. And some of these people are really falling for a lot of nonsense that's going around today. You know what? Out here I have a little bit of a different perspective because we live off grid. We're on the homestead here, and we're in a very agriculturally based area. And so I have a little bit of a different perspective. Out here, it's cattle country. Everyone grows cattle. What industry do we have out here? It's cattle. It could be it's mostly, cows and livestock of sheep, or maybe goats. People have goats and sheep and things like that. There's a number of sheep herds. I have a few sheep, but there are people who actually have herds of sheep out here. And cows. Lots of cattle. And that's the industry here. And so I have a little bit of a different perspective. I go back and I read the New Testament, and I read the words of our Messiah, and he says, I send you out as sheep amongst wolves. And I look at that differently than a lot of people do. Because if we're sheep and he's sending us out amongst wolves, what's going to happen? I mean, the entire phrase is talking about, I'm sending you out as sheep amongst wolves. And what do wolves eat? They eat sheep. Now here we don't have wolves, we have coyotes. And coyotes and wolves hunt kind of in the same way. There's some differences based on how, those two breeds of animals hunt and are predators. But a lot of their attributes are the same. How does a coyote hunt? It hunts and it looks for the weak of the flock. It looks for the sick. It looks for the newborns. It looks for the babies. It looks for those sheep or cattle that they can easily separate from the rest of the herd. And that's who they prey on. He says, I send you out as sheep amongst the wolves. What's a wolf or a coyote in my instance? What's a coyote going to do? It's going to look for the newborn. It's going to look for the babies. It's going to look for the weak. It's going to look for the sick. It's going to look for those that they can easily separate from the herd. And that's what I see happening here. I see a lot of sick. I see a lot of weak. I see a lot of babies in the faith, people who are not grounded on the rock and are easily separated from the herd. There's that old saying, as I was talking about this and thinking about all this, there's that saying, a ship is safest in the harbor, but that's not why it was built. A ship is safe in the harbor, but the ship is built to go out into the sea. Same with a sheep. A sheep can be safe in the corral. A sheep can be safe, where the shepherd is always, but the sheep needs to go out to pasture. And when it goes out to pasture, or when that cattle goes out to pasture, it's vulnerable. It becomes vulnerable, more vulnerable than if it was at home in the corral, safe in the barn. But you put it out in the pasture. And in fact, you know what? The most vulnerable time of a cow's life is when it's born. Because when a cow gives birth to its newborn calf, it then separates itself from the herd and goes off to be by itself to give birth. And that's when the farmer has to take notice and pay especially close attention to that calf. Otherwise it will get picked off, or there's a good chance it can get picked off by a coyote or some other predator like a mountain lion out here. And it happens. There's not a month that goes by. I'm serious. A month that goes by where I don't hear about this happening to one of the ranchers around the area. And so a ship is safest in the harbor, but that's not why it was built. Sometimes you lose sheep, sometimes you lose ships. They go out to sea and they don't come back. They go out to pasture and they don't come back. Because there's this inevitability of owning a ship or owning cattle, that's always a chance, that's always something that could happen. In fact, people who have cattle, they budget their losses, their predator losses, into their bottom line, because they know they're going to lose some. Folks, we ought to figure out and understand that we're going to lose some. And there are people who are going to be taken in by these silly arguments that are easily recognizable as being ridiculous if you study the Word. If you study the New Testament, you study the Tanakh. And so some of these people are taken in by it. We're going to lose some ships. And some of them are going to be what we think are the unsinkable ships. See, that was why Titanic was so dramatic. It was considered to be the unsinkable ship, and it's why today we still have, people who talk about the Titanic every year on the anniversary, and there's museums completely dedicated to the Titanic because it was the ship that was never supposed to sink. And not only did it sink, but it sank on its maiden voyage, its first time out of the harbor. It sank. And it was dramatic. And so when we lose some of these ships and we lose some of these sheep amongst our fold, it's heartbreaking. It's hard to deal with sometimes. But the reality is it's going to happen. He says, I send you out as sheep amongst the wolves. And we read in the New Testament of a number of these sheep that were lost. Paul writes about them. So we know this is going to happen. It has happened. It will happen. I'm going to keep making these videos, these apologetics videos when it comes to defending Yeshua. Again, the playlist is on my New to Torah YouTube page. You can go there and you can watch these Defending Messiah videos that answer a majority of these questions that people are putting out. these claims, there's no Savior but me. Well, what are the chances that the person who would come to save the world would be named salvation? Yah's salvation. Total coincidence, I'm sure. In fact, there's so many of these arguments that are silly. And I've had a really good time, actually enjoyed studying them. And I know their talking points from these certain individuals because I've seen their videos. I watch their videos. I don't just watch the opposition. I don't just go to people who believe in Yeshua and listen to all of their reasons why Yeshua is in fact the Messiah. I go out and I listen to the people who say he's not the Messiah, and I listen to their arguments and I weigh them, and I find them wanting. Ridiculously so. Again, the coyote, the wolf, the mountain lion, they attack the weak, the babies, the newborns, the sick, and the ones that can be easily separated from the herd. That's what we have happening here today. My main focus has always been apologetics, and I'm going to continue doing that. I have the FAQ series I started before Sukkot, and I'll be continuing that. It's a 10-part series, so I'll be doing that, but I'll also be doing some of these claims, and I'm really enjoying, making notes on all these, and I'll keep putting them up under the Defending Messiah playlist, so you can check that out and go with me on those. But the patience of the saints, because at the end, are we going to be the patient ones? Are we going to endure? It says, for those who endure, for those who overcome, I give you the throne. You can sit on that throne with me, he says, just like I sit on that throne with my Father. You gave up the throne. Ridiculous. We'll keep going. Stay tuned. Go home, read your Bible. Thanks.